Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. I'm Misha Perazak. I live at 10 Elfrida. Help organize the Danforth Gardens Neighborhood Association and the Scarborough Junction. We're very pleased to have Councillor Crawford here today to help us navigate through some of the traffic issues in our neighborhood, and his assistants, Kirsten Campbell and Monique Lisi.
Sure.
And we're going to try and get through this presentation pretty quickly so we can have lots of time for questions and interactions with the councillor. Next slide, please. So we've done the land acknowledgement already, so we can go on. This is our agenda. We're gonna try and fire through all these things that you guys have seen it already. Let's move on to the next slide. We can go to the next slide and the next slide. This is the area we're talking about, the Scarborough Junction, and we're defining it as. Next slide. And this is all these blue little houses here. Green is parks, red is schools. All those blue dots are new proposed developments that are in the pipeline. Right? And that's pretty impressive as to the number of things. That's just what's been applied for now. There's going to be more applications. And next slide. Okay, safety. So Gary, I'm going to get you right into this. You can sit and talk or stand up and talk. The yellow stuff is kind of stuff that your office sent me about stuff you guys are already doing. And then the green stuff is action steps we'd like to see happen. And what we'll do, we'll run through the presentation and then we'll deal with all questions at the end, if that's okay. So do you want to speak briefly to the two safety issues there?
First of all, thank you, everyone. Glad everybody could.
Sorry. I was supposed to give Councillor Crawford a few minutes to introduce himself, opening remarks. It was up there. Welcome, Councillor Crawford, and do your opening remarks. Sorry.
Well, my opening remarks aren't going to change from what I was about to say.
Okay.
No, thank everybody for coming out today. It's a rainy day. It's always, there's no hockey game or a baseball game on right now. There will be a hockey game a little later on. And I found, by the way, when I end up doing community meetings, I've had community meetings, 20, 30, 100 people out. They always seem to be on playoff days and people still show up. So the fact that there's no game happening and there's a lot of people here, I just want to thank you for coming out. And thank you for, again, it's an important issue that we're talking about safety. And when you're looking at my priorities, when you're looking at city priorities, we have a mayoral election happening right now. By election that's happening, we look at the priorities of a lot of things. Safety is always at the top of my list. I've been doing this a long time as a councillor, 13 years as a councillor, 7 years as school board trustee. And safety are issues that I and my team, Monique and Kirsten, deal with on a weekly, if not daily basis. When you're looking at the priorities that I have to do in the community, it's all about safety. So I'm very pleased to be sitting here talking about safety and of course in your community. We have a large ward. There's over 110,000 people, geographically large. There's 9,500 streets in all of Toronto. I forget the number. I don't know what it is actually in the ward, but there's a lot of streets. We have a very strong team, and we'll be talking a bit about that today. From the city side, I had a community meeting. How many people did showed up to my community meeting last week or the week before? It was online. It was a virtual one. I much prefer having in person. Trying to figure out ways to do a little bit more of that. But what the purpose of that meeting was to really, for the people that were there, and all you here, is to talk about how, when you're looking at it from a safety perspective, how the city works, what we do. We have an incredibly strong transportation team that works on safety around development. Of course, development is a big issue. So how do you manage development and safety? When you're looking at our Vision Zero, we talked a lot about a Vision Zero, and I have this handout that talks a bit about that. So, and what I do myself and my team on a specific, when you're looking at safety around schools, which is a big issue, and I know I've been out to Danforth many times over the years. I'm trying to figure that out. Maybe development, probably the same place. So I think that's my quick introduction. Let me talk about speed reduction. So it says speed reduction is coming to all Scarborough streets, so all residential streets in Scarborough. And we've had, as part of Vision Zero a couple of years ago, looked at reducing speeds. The old city of Toronto had reduced from down to 40 down to 30. And that was a decision they made probably just before or just after Vision Zero started? Well, once we kicked into the importance of Vision Zero, we realized the importance of speed reduction. So Scarborough, Etobicoke, North York, a couple of years ago made the decision, or council made the decision really, to go all residential streets down to 30. So we're in the process of doing that. I forget where we are in the pipeline of getting this work done, but recognizing it's not as simple as reducing down to 30, because you have to find out all the locates, you have thousands, if not hundreds, if not thousands of signs you have to put up, so it's gonna take a while.
By this year.
Oh, there we go, by the end of this year. Thank you, that's why I brought these lovely babies. But so that's happening, and that will have hopefully a big impact on residential streets, and we've had many requests to residential streets and local roads and you know, pharmacy and all that, but on that, we are moving everything down to 30 by the end of the year. One of the challenges, of course, we have when we're getting out in the suburbs of downtown, and we've had this conversation with the communities. When streets were built 40, 50, 60 years ago downtown compared to the suburbs, they were built a little bit different, because they're a little bit wider. They really built more for speed, unfortunately. Back, you know, 50, 60 years ago, that wasn't an issue. It's more of an issue now. So even if you reduce, and our staff will say, even if you reduce a street from 50 to 40 or from 40 down to 30, there's a natural speed that everybody wants to drive, regardless of what you do, whatever is prevented. Now we can put in things like speed humps, which will help. But you have to look at, as you're coming out into more of the suburban areas, different design of street. We sometimes have to take a different tack on trying to figure that out, but it's a very important thing. Speed, at the end of the day, you need to reduce speeds. I mean, that's one thing. And as we get into congestion, we get more people moving in. We'll talk about development, what is happening with the 26,000 people over the next 20 years that are coming into this area. I have seen myself just through driving through the city, and I've seen through our staff, and when more and more people around, there's more, unfortunately, congestion, more people. It actually makes streets safer because people are actually slowing down. You have more congestion. I don't like congestion when you drive, and I'm sure you don't. But there's a natural reduction of speed on all. So that is happening. And the survey. So one of the things I do on a very regular basis, and most of this comes from input from the community. They'd like to have a stop sign here. They'd like to have speed humps there. They'd like to have certain sort of traffic mitigations. And we're continually looking at that. And I did, I guess it was last year, or just, I'm trying to think of the date when we did this. Looking at the survey letter for speed reduction on Alfreda. And a stop sign, it's a stop sign, Alfreda and Trinidad.
Yes, that's right. That was 2019, just prior to the pandemic,
Yeah,
but we didn't get much of a response from
Yeah,
the community at all.
so and that's as an example of some of the work that we're doing. And there was a request, I don't know, for you, Misha, or a resident, to look at how do we slow traffic on Alfreda. Of course, one option is to reduce the speed. The other option is that we put in a stop sign. Sometimes they work depending on the street, sometimes they don't. So the request went out. I would have sent a letter out to the community, wanting to know what your input was, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that there's support from the community. We didn't get the kind of support that we needed to move forward. Not to suggest we're not going to do it again. And again, if you have a group of a community that wants to have some changes, absolutely, we're more than willing to do that. So.
Can I just add a little something?
Yeah. So, but just, I'm here to speak to, but I have, when you're looking at the experts on safety in the community, Kirsten and Monique are there, so I'm also going to pass it over to Kirsten.
I'm no expert, but I certainly work closely with our experts at transportation and have carried out experience. I just want to add that stop signs are not installed as a speed reduction measure. They are installed in the case of right-of-way issues or, you know, sightline issues. In terms of speed reduction, they can actually make the problem worse in terms of noise and not very mad. I was going to use another word. I checked myself. So just that. So stop signs are not for speed reduction.
And just quickly too, and I'm looking at the other, I know that those are green, not yellow. But when you're looking at, so when we look at trying to make these changes in communities, everything needs to be data driven. You folks who live in the community have the best data because you see it on a daily basis. So we rely on that. But our staff, when we're making these decisions, that sometimes we do have to go to council. We also look at data driven. So we have to do warrants, we have to do studies. Sometimes they meet the warrants, sometimes they don't. So I just wanted to mention that if any of these works that have to be done, and again, installing speed humps on Alfreda, I have no problem doing that. In fact, I think last community council this community council come up, we have some recommendations to do speed humps in certain parts of the ward. So by all means, I'd love to be able to do that with the community, but that's getting out to the community. Speed humps are one of those issues, and I'm talking a lot up front, and hopefully we'll have to have some more questions afterwards, but speed humps are one of those that sound great to put in speed humps because you think it'll slow down traffic, but it's not always the answer. I'm a 50-50 on it. I'll be quite honest with you. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. It could actually make things more dangerous, but I'm also looking at what the community wants, and if the majority, and I've gone through a process with the community, if the majority of people are looking at wanting them, and some streets need them, frankly, because they're real cut throughs. Now, if Alfreda's a cut through, which I think a lot of you know, it may potentially work, or it could actually be a detriment to the streets, the street. So we always want to look at this very carefully on an individual basis, but by all means, if this is something that the community wants, I'm more than willing to try to work this on.
Thanks very much. That is awesome to hear. I really appreciate everyone's input on that. So our plan, I'm all about action steps. So our plan is that that the community can help out here. Because a lot of our community is older still, especially in Elfrida, aren't online literate. So we will do a door-to-door. Patricia will run it by you guys first. Like we've done in the past under Councillor Bergnetti to get the speed reduced. And we'll do a survey and the survey will likely be, do you want a stop sign at Flagstaff? Do you want a stop sign at Chanel? Do you want a stop sign at both? Do you want speed bumps?
If you would, contact our office and we will send you a proper template that's from Transportation Services with the proper wording, so that's clear.
Yeah, I'll take one quick question because I really like Maria.
When there's an accident, St. Graham Bridge, one of the buses come out.
Yeah, that hopefully that doesn't happen too often. Yeah, there's gonna be all kinds of pressure on our street as more developments come up. So, and that's part of our discussion here. So, yeah, let's do that. So that we're done on that. Our action step is done. And we appreciate the council's office cooperation on that. We'll do the survey door to door and we'll get a good response, like a full response. And I know people are engaged on this. Next slide, please. So this will be just a quick one. Councillor has already mentioned that he has met with us, and I can confirm that because I was at the last meeting that he had with us there. It's still a problem. I personally am concerned that a kid's gonna get hit.
Yeah.
I don't want to bring up tragedies, but I don't want to bring up tragedies, but I taught while I was an instructional assistant in the special ed program at Burlington Central, where a 9-year-old or 8-year-old girl died last week. My buddy has taught there his whole school career, retired now, doing their 100th anniversary, and it's just devastated all of them. And that was on their driveway into their parking lot. There's people letting their kids out on the street side, right? There's been hoses put on people's cars, knives have been pulled, police have been called. Right? These are things that have happened right in front of the school. So the action step here is, and the councillor has already alluded to the fact that he's willing to meet. I'd like to set up a meeting with your office and the principal and the school council and come up with a 1-month blitz. I don't want to come up with the plan now, but I want a commitment. I'm sure you guys will agree to me, because I'm not a fatalist. Someone's gonna get really hurt. Like, it's really bad.
Bisha, TPS should be part of the meeting, Toronto Police Services.
Yeah, okay,
And city staff.
okay.
That way you have everyone in one
That would
place
be
at the
awesome.
same time, and if your idea is a blitz, then that can be discussed with everyone.
Yeah,
Oh, we can
you
coordinate
could even
that.
get like those pretend police, or the junior police people to come on and give full tickets for a week. We're starting a ticket next week, or there's all kinds of things could be done. But, okay, so that is all, we've never had that. So that's 2 good things that have happened today. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so this is the front of the school. This is to illustrate. Cabs, school buses, people parking. Next slide, please. People just unloading on the side there, backing up, doing 3-point turns in front of the driveway to the school. Look at, it's packed all the way down Santa Monica there towards the west.
Excuse me,
Yep,
what they're doing I get my driveway blocked about 3 times a month. I had to go and tell the woman. I said, she says, it'll only take a couple minutes for the kid. I said, I have to go out, you're blocking driveway. She said, be nice. I said, how about you being nice to me? I gotta get out my driveway.
And that, you're not the first story like that we've heard. There's multiple
And it
stories
happens
like
all
that,
the time.
arguments and fights. People
I'm not
are turning other
I'm just
people.
gonna tell them to get
No,
out.
I know, but I'm telling, I have other neighbors that have complained about
Yeah.
that exact
Okay.
thing. Next slide. People took 3-point turns in the bus loading zone. People were honking. I was there. I took that picture. Next slide. School crossing guard at Newlands and Santa Monica. Oh, sorry. And just on that note, Maria, did you want to just make a comment or have Maya? Yeah.
When my dog leaves up, they've been near hit many times when people roll through the tops and they don't stop. And neither do the people walking, they just walk.
Are you talking about the stop sign you bring in Santa Monica?
Yeah.
I've been right down from that, and one day my friend and I were sitting out there and said, let's count the cars and see how many stop. We counted 40 cars, not one fully stopped.
Yeah.
And it was the kids, this was time.
Okay, so hopefully at least during school pickup and drop off, we've got a solution. So Gary, do you want to speak to this? Because I think you've made some progress on this.
Yeah, just quickly with regard to schools. So again, as I said, I've been doing this for almost 20 years, 7 as a school board trustee. I remember back when they're 13 out, they were back going to school, and Fairmount Public Schools where they were going. I was in school council, and again, the same sort of stuff that you see at Danforth Gardens, I've seen in many schools. Unfortunately, that's what the pros and cons, but unfortunately, you're not alone. It is a little more tricky in Danforth Gardens just because of how the streets are. You don't have a long street, so it is a challenge. I've been out a number of times. Really, the solution is, and there's no perfect answer. It is really a partnership. It's a partnership with the city. We can do restrictions. We can do, like tow zones and no parking and all that. We can do enforcement with our police. But there's 3 components to that. So the city, it's the enforcement, and then it's the school. It's critically important that we get the support of the school principal, hopefully a parent council, because don't forget, these are the parents dropping their kids off. And they should know better, but they don't always know better, unfortunately. But when you sit down, and I've had success on a number of schools across the board over the years, but it really takes that partnership and the commitment because it's not only the enforcement, but it's the education. If you don't have the education and the parent council chair community out engaging the parents, making them understand the importance of the safety, it's really challenging to do. And from the community's perspective, it's also challenging. So we can't, not that we can't, but it's very difficult from the cities and the enforcement side to do it if we don't have the support of the school. I have talked to, it's been a number of years prior to the pandemic.
Principal and go.
Which is good. So the next step, Alicia has mentioning is to sit down. Hopefully, I don't know who the council chair would be at the school.
Yeah.
But sitting down with the school, with their representatives, with city staff, of course, the police, and working out a plan. Now, we can, from the city's perspective, and I know we've looked at this in the past, it's been a number of years since we've looked at. So we can do restrictions. We can say no standing here. You're not allowed to park here. We can do those restrictions, and you have to enforce them. But then we need, as I said, the community to have to buy in with that. But I'm more than willing to look at trying to do that. Again, as I said, we have had some successes. Once all of those 3 ingredients are there. So that's what we'll hopefully do. And again, it's always timed around the school year. You're always trying, again, we're getting now into May, June, getting to the end of the school year. What I'd like to be able to do is engage the school prior to the summer coming, and we could look at something for September. It gives the city enough time, if we have to do any sort of parking restrictions or whatever it may be, it gives us some time to do the analysis and to do that. But it's really the opportunity because I don't think the issue really happens in the summer. We'll have to do that in the summer. So that's what I'm kind of looking at. It'd be good to over the next month or 2 to sit down with the school
Right.
community.
Yeah, that's great, and we're down with that, but this specifically, I believe that you guys have applied for the crossing guard and you've gotten approval, is that correct?
Well, we
No,
don't.
Or not,
we
what's the status?
The
So
source,
we-
if you look at the chart, it's okay, I can yell. If you look at the chart of the handout that we sent you, it gives you an idea of a timeline. When, the application for a school crossing guard has been submitted. The counselor and the principal of the school, the acting principal, in this case, it's Paul Farrell, I believe
No, it's not. We got
it was. At the time it
Gail
was.
David.
So, okay, so it was. So Paul and the councillor sent letters of endorsement in November 2022, right? Yeah, I think Maria, Maria, we spoke of this. So this is the process that any school crossing guard application goes through. They're just gathering data now.
Okay.
April and May, they're gathering data. It actually takes up to a year before the school crossing guard, and I see a few heads shaking, I get that, but you know, it's a process. Everybody wants their school crossing guard in right away. But there's a process for every school crossing guard entity.
We have, the city has, so one of the things that we have done over the last couple of years is it used to be administered by Toronto Police. We have since removed that because the challenge was that you put in a request and it would sit around for years and years and never really happened. But they had a certain budget line that didn't go over that. We brought it back to the city as part of our transportation. We've increased, so last year we increased by $1 million investment in crossing guards, and we've streamlined the process to make it much quicker. So we're actually pumping out a lot more applications, and we're looking at a lot more. So my hope is within the next number of months, we'll get a positive. They're doing all the data right now, and you guys know what the data is because you see it. So I'm hoping that we'll have a crossing guard hopefully by the fall, and we'll follow up with that. So that is absolutely in the works to get that done.
Great, so thanks for clarifying that. That's what we wanted, a status update is basically what we wanted. So just to clarify for everyone, the application has been submitted by the council's office, but sounds like we're on stage 2, the data collection piece. So, we'll keep tabs on that and check in with the council's office when that piece is done, and we'll go forward depending on what that response is. Next slide, please. Car traffic, also, this is again, just reinforcing the point. This is the corner that we're talking about, Santa Monica Newlands. This is a pickup or probably a drop off in the morning. There's my kid. And, Dad, you gotta take more pictures? Come on, we gotta get to school. But, next slide, please. And this is the same corner from the other side. There's me, my shadow taking the picture. And next slide. Neighborhood streets plan. So Gary, you want to just talk briefly about what this is and how we can get nominated, and what do we get out of being nominated?
But I'm going to pass it over to Kirsten in a second. You know a bit more than I do. So neighborhood streets plan is new to the city. It's a program that we are looking at. It's coming out of Vision Zero, and we're looking at we are talking about individual things that we can do on individual streets and communities. What this is an overall plan to look at a whole neighborhood, look at all the streets, look at all the data, and make improvements based on a neighborhood. It's a lot more work, but I think the results that they have suggested to us is, and again, when we're looking at, and I don't know if anybody's aware, we've done complete street analysis. So we're looking at changing complete street, bike lanes, putting in a number of things, but we're looking at the entirety of a community. This is what this is about. Recognizing there's a lot of work involved in this, and it's a new project that we're going to be doing. What staff have suggested to us is that we councillors can nominate communities in different areas to look at this study and hopefully the improvements. When you're looking at an area, this and Misha, you've mentioned the area that you want to be nominated. So I will nominate this community, and I've looked at a lot of communities in the ward, but we've looked at 3 or 4 of them. This will be one of them that I'll be nominating. So I'll send a letter to staff, and then they will look at that based on the demand that has come across all of Scarlet. We've heard that there's not a lot of input from other councillors, which makes the fact that I've already put my requests in probably better that they'll maybe choose them quicker. They can only do so many a year. I don't know what the number is, but they'll look at trying to do that. But this is the plan to really help make communities and neighborhoods safer as opposed to street by street. And it has some promise from what I've heard so far in trying to really mitigate some of the challenges that you all know. Is that?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. You know, without having our experts from Vision Zero here, it's difficult to, but we can nominate, you know, we suggested, St. Clair to the north, Huddleston Crescent to the south. I sent this to you, I think, when it wasn't to the west. And Marcus. Yeah, and to the east, and if we do it by June. And then it will be considered in this year, you know, as a neighborhood. And they look at the whole neighborhood. What could be done to make this neighborhood safer? What they would suggest, you know, and I think it's a very new thing. In this first year, they're wanting councillors' offices to send in a nomination to, so I can scratch my back doing this. So, so that's what we're doing. And, after that time, once the program is underway, then communities themselves can send in ideas of nominations. And so that's what they're working toward. It's a very new thing. I think it's a fantastic idea because oftentimes we hear of several streets in a neighborhood where people are bothered because people are cutting through. It's oftentimes a neighborhood that's surrounded by arterial roads, which are the busier roads, so you get cut throughs and all that, right? So, I'm quite excited about it. We all are. And, so that's what I was thinking might be a good suggestion for this neighborhood. So we're going to go ahead and send that nomination in.
It's in green right there as an action step.
Yeah,
So we'll follow.
that's right.
So I appreciate that. All right, can we go to the next slide? Because I do want to get to your questions. Okay, so very briefly, 3431 St. Clair, proposed 12-story mixed-use condominium building designed by A&A Architects for atria development on the southwest corner of St. Clair Avenue East in Birchmount, also AKA the beer store. All right, and that's what it's going to look like. I think that rendition might be the original 16-story proposal, but it's gone down to. Is there a step down still on it?
I have to look at the most recent application. They're trying to proceed through site plan right now.
Yeah.
It's going to be a planning report going to a future Scarborough Community Council
Yeah.
to consider.
It's not that.
It is not that. So,
You know, it's 12, but before it was 16 down to 10.
yeah, there's,
Right, it's gonna be 12 down to 8 now.
well, there's normally a step down, and that's detail that we'll get in our next update, and of course, we can share it. But just as a point, when you're seeing all these development applications go up and the notice is hammered in and posted at the front, what you see on that picture is 99, no, probably almost 100% of the time, never what is actually going to be built. That is the developer's wish. And then it really gets shaved down and moderated as much as it can with community consultation, with council input, and with all the different divisions of the city. And it almost guaranteed is something very, very different than that. And that's why input along and feedback along is something that the councillor can push forward in all discussions, either with the developer, but more specifically to his colleagues and with city planning staff.
Can I ask a question? You said that started out at 16 and now we're going to be down around 10 or 12? Any bets that the developer wanted 10 or 12 and they just said, give us 16?
Everyone plays that game.
So
Yeah, I know it myself when I sell things. You know,
I've been doing this quite a long time, and yeah, I mean, there are two strategies. And the developer reaches out to me, I mean, I'll always have a meeting with them. First of all, obviously, you gotta go to the community first, talk to the community, see what they think. But I say, listen, you can pull that strategy if you want, go for 16, knowing full well you're only gonna be getting 10. A lot of them do. I try to encourage them, let's just sit down and have a realistic conversation with city staff and the community. If you're gonna be shooting for 10, I'd rather come to you guys and say, listen, you know, they're trying to get 10. Are you good with that? Now, you may turn around and go, well, still too much, we want 9 or 8, I get that. But what it sometimes does just infuriates the community, and I've seen this happen where we all get really mad because they have like all these units and all these floors coming, but the reality is, most of the time they bring it down. But that's, as you said, that's a strategy. They figure, let's go high and we'll shoot down here. Where the difference is when they're looking at going to field, which is a totally different process. Well, this application won't be going through process, but our city staff see, I've had meetings with our city staff. We know full, and you may be allowed 8 stories, they're going for 12, they ask for 16. We kind of know where the end product will end up being. It's just sometimes disingenuous to the community when you sort of see something like that. No, that way.
So, and 12 is in line with the other buildings along there. We're not fighting that. We welcome the development. I think most of the community can live with. I don't think there's an issue. Next, and that's not the issue we're talking about. So that's what's currently there. That was the original 16-story building. Next slide. So this notice went up explaining what's going to be happening there. I don't know if the council had a chance, maybe not, in the staff to see, but we made our own little development sign that the community has been signing at the back. And we're going to be discussing what those proposals are right now. We had a little rally here, just covered up for half an hour while we had a rally. Next slide. So here's the thing. The meeting has gone swimmingly so far. I'm 100% satisfied with what we've achieved, and we've achieved like 3 or 4 major things today already. This is going to be a little trickier. So I'm just putting that out there right away. So here's the community's issues, Councillor and staff. That you know already. They want to put the driveway for the building out on where basically where the driveway is now for the beer store. The reasoning is, which I don't argue, I put it on the Birchmount, it's too close to the corner, it's busy. Their argument is that why it's too close. Like it would only be 50 meters. Okay, Sean, let me get through.
Double spaces here.
Yeah, yeah.
Doing, but okay, developer, you bring all these people and then you talk double standard again.
Okay,
No, go too much, nobody likes.
Okay. all right,
Let's go.
okay.
Let's go enough.
Wait, Sean, I
I
appreciate, no,
I think the last time it's Stanford, that's the never come to a meeting. We pay double stack, pay double game. Don't pay the people double game. Too much, the people have concerns, not people bring a car this road. Let's stand up.
okay, Sean,
No,
I appreciate your passion.
I know,
I just, what I'm gonna present,
you're going double.
I'm trying to explain
No,
the city's argument.
it's okay.
Sean, please. Sean, please, Sean, please let me finish, okay? You don't have, first of all, I said this at the beginning, you don't have to agree with me, and I haven't presented.
No, we don't want to feed that. I don't want it.
Okay, that's another discussion, and that's an option, and that's a valid point of view.
Yeah, I told you last time, on the benchmark, that's it.
Okay, that's fine, you've had your say, okay? I'm just explaining the situation, I'm explaining what the council is gonna say.
But it's okay to have it feed that, but I don't want last time. Why? Why not the benchmark?
We don't have to have it on Freedom, John.
You said last time, no, but then you said no to the.
I said, personally, my personal opinion,
No,
we
no,
came up with a,
go on the benchmark, that's it.
that's fine, okay, you said, had your say.
I'm going to stand up, I'm going to bring my own,
That's fine,
yeah.
you can do that, Sean. Let us get through the meeting, okay? Let us get through the meeting. You've had your say, we're gonna do questions at the end, we can discuss after.
You want to stop the traffic, we're going to feed that, right? If I don't want it, I don't want it. You want it.
I know.
Sean, why do you want?
let me finish.
Yeah,
Sean, can I step in? I don't think we've met before. I recognize your passion. We really, allow Misha and myself to really get through this. No decisions have been made. So I understand that,
But this guy, I was thinking honestly, the community, but he want a double game with the developer, and he also want to show his against proposal.
you know what?
we really need to get through people are here to, if we can get through the meeting, that would be much appreciated. I recognize your concern. I can talk to you afterwards, but I do recognize your concern.
Okay, so, no, I just finished now. So I'm just telling you the city's thought process. I'm just sharing, not necessarily my opinion. The city in general, if they have a building, they want to put the exit or entrance on a side street. That's a general policy. You can agree or disagree with that. That's their policy. So their argument, not mine, their argument is it's only 50 meters from the corner of Birchmount and St. Clair, and it's too busy for cars to come in and out there. Their argument are not to put it on St. Clair, which I would prefer personally. Okay, which I prefer personally. Their argument is, that's all I've been posting is their argument, is it's gonna disrupt pedestrian traffic and becomes a safety. This is their argument. They'll argue with me. And so they want to put it on the side. Whenever I do a community initiative, I personally have 3 words that I have standards that I tested against: meaningful, measurable, and achievable. So in that spirit, if they're going to insist, and we can't win a fight for it to go on St. Clair, and if someone can get support for that, that's great. I'm asking for a right turn only from this parking lot towards St. Clair, so that cars from the 257 cars from this parking garage don't come off our street. A lamb chop bump out in front of this driveway, which is going to be a parquet. 67 Elfrida has been bought by the developer as their parkland piece. They have to provide park land space or money. and a traffic light at, St. Clair and Elfrida. So can we go to the next slide? So here's the rationale. Here's the rationale. The red, the orange, dark orange zones are the schools. So Elfrida is the main, one of the main arterials for pedestrians and school kids going to school to both these schools. And there's already traffic issues up there. So having a traffic light there and slowing things down along there is a good idea for that reason alone. This is the infiltration piece here. There is a light at Birchland and Newlands to get out. And there was one put at Santa Monica and St. Clair as well for people to go out. But these cars, if they're allowed to turn up in here, are just gonna add to those pictures of the congestion at Elfrida and Newlands, Santa Monica and Newlands. And there was also a picture that might be coming up of a whole line of cars from Santa Monica all the way to the lights at Newlands. So that's this argument here, that there's extenuating circumstance. The city also has a formula. And unfortunately, I didn't bring the numbers, but I did talk to transportation. They gave me the exact numbers. There's so many cars per hour will come out of there. And then they even have designated how many cars during the whole day or at rush hours will come out. And it's like 70 and 60 is what they're projecting, something around that. So many coming in, so many coming out. My argument is we got a problem here at Newlands Elfrida already, right? Especially at school time and the safety issue with the students. That's, I think, an extenuating circumstance. Next slide, please. So this is just some of the parking that happens on Elfrida, both during the day and at pickup and drop off. These people are doing the right thing. They're not parking in the illegal zone in front of the school. They're walking to the school and getting it.
Yeah,
But this is
they're
adding
parked
to
right
the-
on the corner though, you can see.
Yeah,
that.
there may be some illegal parking here too.
And they're parked in front of my house too.
Yeah,
Blocking.
I know. Technically, they're not breaking any law, but all the cars and parking, and they park on both sides. They park on both sides. Next slide, please. So this on a rainy day again, 3-point turns in Elfrida as people are trying to get in and out of this area. It's really dangerous. And next slide. This is Elfrida again. This is, just before pickup time. Next slide. Yeah, and same thing, same shot, different season. Next slide.
Excuse me.
Yep.
You see that pole that's just down the end of our fleet?
Yeah.
I was out one night when a Jeep Wrangler ran into it. It's still got a crack in it.
Yeah.
And that's just one of the incidents.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. No, all these comments and questions are good, but I do want to have time for your question. So this is the lineup of cars trying to get out of Newlands. Right, every day. Next slide, please. So basically, Elfrida is used as a shortcut for people going east on St. Clair to avoid the Birchland St. Clair intersection already. Only going to get worse with more development. And so we are one of those cut throughs that Kirsten talked about. Elfrida is the main pedestrian route for school children for 2 schools. The congestion at St. Clair, Elfrida, Newlands, and Santa Monica, especially at school pickup and drop off, is horrendous and dangerous. Congestion will be increased throughout the neighborhood, especially at access points at Newlands and Birchland and Santa Monica and St. Clair. 26,000 units are projected. That's just what's projected on the books now, not additional. Allowing those cars, it's 257 cars now, will turn a residential street where children play into a thoroughfare that it was not designed or intended to be. It's going to become a thoroughfare. So we believe these extenuating circumstances warrant traffic infiltration interventions to prevent vehicles from coming up our street. That's our argument. Next slide, please. So we're asking for these 3 things: a traffic light at St. Clair and Elfrida, a turn restriction at Elfrida driveway, and a curb bump out at Elfrida. Next slide, please. So the action steps, the first 2 things would be on the councillor or Scarborough Council and City Council to propose. I'll tell you straight up, and the councillor probably knows this, the warrant, I told the group already, the warrant study for a traffic light at Elfrida and St. Clair didn't meet the standard. and I'm sure it was professional, but in many of these cases, as the council will tell you, the developer hires the contractor who does the traffic study typically. Here's my-
Misha, let me, well, wait a minute.
I was told that by transportation.
Wait a minute.
Okay,
Ron.
I'm just telling you.
So listen, let's not dump on developer, whether you like the developer.
I'm not dumping.
Misha, please, our professional staff will be analyzing this. They may be looking at data from the developer. They're gonna look at their own data. They're gonna look at data from my office, from the community, and then they will make, based on warrants that they have to follow, recommendations to council. So this is not the developer's study that they're gonna be basing their recommendations on. There are 9,500 streets in the city of Toronto. We have an incredibly professional transportation staff that look at all these. And there are times that council, they may give me a recommendation. There are times that council will overlook that. A lot of times they'll say, we don't want to put a stop sign here, councillor. Council will go, well, we have an opportunity to change things. So I look at all of that. I look at the recommendations from our staff, and they have, you're right, and it's in my letter, they have not made recommendations for a stop sign at St. Clair and Elfrida. They have not made recommendations. They don't feel it's going to be, from their perspective, making a no left turn on Elfrida coming south. That's their recommendation. We're still working with them, going through the process as part of the development application, and that will be coming. But I look when I'm looking, there's a difference between a stop sign and with the severity, not only that, but the cost of putting in an intersection. I look at safety, and in fact, our staff have said, and I think they mentioned it to you, Misha, that you put a stoplight in there, that can actually increase infiltration into a community in certain circumstances. I'd have to see the data on that, but just because you put a stoplight sign in or stop light intersection does not necessarily mean it's going to be safer for the community. And I rely on the professionals to provide the advice. I'm not a professional, I'm just a layperson. And but that's
Just hold for.
all I wanted to say is, we'll look at those recommendations, and this is down the road, and I will have that conversation, or my staff will have that conversation along with the community about looking at, do we put that in? So again, going, and I'll do the no left turn out of the development. So here, this is just looking at those pictures. Going down Elfrida, and it was basically bumper to bumper. I'm assuming the vast majority of those people are taking their kids over to the school. I'm assuming, I'm not too sure, but it looked like that. If there's no left turn coming out of the development or not, I'm pretty sure if I'm in a car and I see that bumper to bumper, I'm gonna make a right, I'm gonna go on a St. Clair and down Birchmount if I wanna go south anyway. So having a no left turn is not gonna make an impact on and I'm just basing it on the picture I saw. You guys know what it's like every day. So staff have said they don't think it's a good idea. That doesn't mean that I, as a councillor or the community council, will not support or may turn around and put a no left turn in there. And that, by the way, will happen as part of the site plan application, as part of the development. And we may approve the development, but the next process is site plan application. That is where we need to figure out what happens. What I will do is again, I will put in a motion, and I don't know what's coming, June, July, I'm not sure. That you need to look at that no left turn, you need to look at the stoplight. And if staff feel that it is warranted and, based on the input, the developer has to pay for it. Because I'm not, frankly, it's gonna have an impact on the community. The city should not, you guys, you're the taxpayers, you shouldn't be paying for a or a stop sign. We're gonna get the developer to pay for that as part of it. So that's what's happening. I don't know if it's in June, July, or maybe October. But we're just waiting for that to come.
It's imminent, we'll share that with everyone, but by putting transportation comments into that planning report, even any future determination of the traffic
I gave
limitation.
you past 3 hours already, okay? We can finish the whole thing and then we do the answer questions afterwards, we get done.
The staff just, yeah, we'll move on. Yeah.
The answer questions.
Right. They're,
Can we agree to that?
yeah. They're,
Finish the whole thing, and
Yeah.
then we go to answer questions.
thank you. The staff are trying to give us information. Let me backtrack a little bit. So I know you guys reacted a little bit. I didn't intend to be malice, when I said that. No, well, I know, but I just stated a fact that the developer contracts the traffic study often, as they do many other studies. And yes, yeah, I get that. So I'm just, that's all I stated.
Does their own work.
They do some of their own work as well. I was never arguing that.
All right.
Okay, so my point is that and the councillor alluded to this too, that, that a councillor can, and transportation is the way, I asked them directly, what, and it isn't warranted. As far as they're not saying it would be bad, they're not saying it's wrong, or there'd be catastrophic results somewhere else. They're just saying, right now, there's not enough traffic. There's not enough traffic to warrant a stop light there.
They're also.
Yeah.
Projection, just for,
Yeah.
they have studied countless developments across the city and installation of stop signs or traffic
Right.
lights.
Right,
So their information, when they see the warrants and everything, they're also basing it
Got
on
it.
past experience. So they know what impacts could happen.
right.
Like, if
Right.
it's-
Yeah, I know. So, okay. Yes, we understand that. So anyway, the point is that the counselor could, as he just mentioned, he could recommend even against the recommendation of transportation. It was done at Santa Monica and Elfrida by the former counselor. When I spoke to transportation, I directly asked them. And I asked them, well, what if it's not warranted by your study? Can it still get done? Quote, happens all the time. So it can be done. And what I'm asking the counselor to do, we're not arguing the warrant study. We're arguing the extenuating circumstances and all the things that we talked about. So that's the same thing with the right turn only. The car bump out is the purview of the city planner and transportation on whether they recommend that into the site plan. And from my understanding for the informative meetings we had recently, that's their purview, right?
Misha, can
So-
I just say one thing?
Yeah.
I just want to clarify something, Counselor. It's not only the school issue, the safety, but anytime there is a traffic issue, like
On Birchmount.
it redirected from Bertrand, Elfrida is always the
Yeah.
street that's used, and it happens more often than not. Buses going up.
Yeah.
Increased traffic.
Yeah,
We used to have stop, signs at the beginning, at the end of the streets of a certain, like no heavy trucks coming on the street. That is all ignored. So we've had our street cave in twice now.
yeah. Oh, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so I just want to say it's not just the school, and I hope you don't think it's just
Oh,
the school.
just-
It is that Elfrida,
Yeah.
at any time that there is a redirection and reroute.
Right.
Right, and the argument that if they're gonna see that it's busy, they're not gonna wanna go that way, let's just be extra cautious and let's put these restrictions in. Sorry, next slide, I've been talking too much. Okay, so here's some examples of where there are traffic lights in the city. Next slide, please. So this is what we're asking for, 150 meters from Birchmount and St. Clair. That's well within standards right across the city. Next slide, even 1 kilometer up the road between Kennedy and Danforth is just 125. There's countless examples around the city where traffic lights are this close. Okay, next slide. Here's a traffic light that's 145 meters. On Bathurst Street, they put a traffic light in just for the entrance of the condo. Maybe the developer paid for that. So that's an example there. Next slide. A traffic light there will help serve the people at 3431 St. Clair crossing directly over into St. Clair Ravine Park. And which connects with the proposed rail trail and parkland. That's going to be really important for our community as well as the development. Next slide. Turn restriction at Elfrida. Next slide. So we're asking for the right turn only there. That was from our little rally. I just chalked that on there. Next slide. That's where the parquet's going to be. And another reason to keep people coming this way, because there's going to be kids playing there. Next slide. Curb bump out at Elfrida. Next slide. And this is the example of, and you'll see it. It'll be illuminated even more in a moment. This is basically the same distance from the corner on Scotia Avenue, just a kilometer south of here, if that, where it's one way on Scotia. They put the curb bump out. That's what we're asking for there on the right. Cars can't go up, but then it's two-way right here, so they can get in and out of the condo. Next slide. Birchcliff Residents Community went to OLT, Ontario Land Tribunal, negotiated with city staff and the developer for a one-way street on Scotia. Do not enter signs and a bump out, which you just saw. Next slide. And that's it right there. Like, does that picture not look familiar? I mean, it's flipped over, but that's basically what we're asking for. I'm not sure exactly.
But that's not,
Yeah.
that's Warden Danforth.
Yeah, I know it's one thing now.
So that appeal that you're referring to is a different development that they negotiated that on.
Yeah, that's not, that's.
That's the one I was told, but, okay,
Yeah, it's
regardless.
development, it's in. Birch.
Okay, so it's another one then, but this is another one then.
Yeah,
All right,
it's
all right.
not part of the same appeal.
Yeah, I was told by the Birchcliff people, but maybe I misunderstood. Regardless, that point is like not the main point. The main point is that's what we're asking for. It's been done already. We're not asking for anything that hasn't been done, right? And it'd be really important to our community to do this. This is already there. Yeah. No, that, we're just asking. Maybe at some point when there's more developments and more people, we look at that. I'm trying to be pragmatic, right? And fight the fight that we can win. That's my personal opinion, right? That we have a chance of winning, remember, achievable. So we can fight the fight to put it on St. Clair. I don't know if we win that one. I don't know if we win that one. I would prefer that. I would prefer it not being Elfrida. I don't know if I win that fight. So this one, we have a shot at, because it's all been done before, right? The councillor can still put a light in and propose a turn restriction, even if it's not warranted. And when I say warranted, that means they don't think there's the need. It's not shown that there's enough cars to show the need. It doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be bad impact somewhere else, although that's a valid discussion. So this is what we're asking for. It's been done close to here. Next slide. I've kind of been through this already, so I'm not going to bother with that. Next slide. Over 95% of Elfrida households had signed in favor of the petition for this proposal that you just saw. And we're hoping to get it through our neighborhood. Next slide. There's a petition there. More people have signed now. Next slide. Next steps. So basically, like I said, there's still some, this last piece is a contentious issue. I just want to point out, we've made some progress today. We're going to review the installation of stop signs, the speed bumps. We're going to arrange a meeting with the councillor, school administration, police, and other city staff. We're going to nominate the Danforth Gardens. Check. Here's where it gets trickier. And then meet with city staff, councillor, and developer, negotiate solutions. If necessary, I don't know if there's time to incorporate and whether OLT is even an option at this late date, because this proposal is coming up. It was going to be May, June, or July. It's close. So aspects of this are need to happen now. And next slide. Questions. Okay, can we have the lights up? I know we've dealt with a bunch of questions already. I know I wanted to have half an hour. We're gonna have 15 minutes. The question, the counselor does have he's got a hard 3:30 out.
Yep.
So counselor, do you want to just stand up? I'll bring this to people. Please keep your questions short because there's a bunch of people. I'm gonna start from the back.
When we started to think about 3431 St. Clair, we looked to see what we could find out about city planning and how the thing goes, because it's pretty quiet for most people in the neighborhood. And when we looked, we found almost 2 years ago the preliminary for city planning. Actually, I was quite struck personally, as well as thinking about it more broadly, in the number of criticisms that the city planners had against the developer's proposal. And right now, today, we're talking about, a couple of those issues. And there's other issues. I mean, in fact, you could see that the city planners are driven by a whole set of ideals about what a good community is. Things like height, schools, traffic, walkability, like how it fits the neighborhood, what it does for the neighborhood or to the neighborhood. Is the net effect, for instance, of 3431 going to be socially like about the impact of the gas station across Birchmount? I mean, what is the impact of all of these things? Green space, community and recreation services. What's the impact there? And also the impact on family and social services, even retail, where you buy your food and find it. So, I was really struck by this and, struck by the fact that, what do we do when we see something, whoever I talked to was just sort of, wow, this is really terrible, this is going to impact me. It's not just, we see how difficult it is to deal with crosswalks in the school. There's a massive amount of concern that people have about what's happening. You go to Victoria and Edmonton, right across to Kennedy, massive.
You made some awesome points. Kennedy, I just want to get to some other questions.
Sure. What have you done to show leadership to engage with the communities who's worried about what's happening, the larger picture? What are you willing to do? What's your assessment of this issue, of that situation? Thanks.
The assessment is to work very closely with communities, which, I have, and I have to, one of the things that we sometimes, forget, and is the fact that we have just come out of a pandemic, we have 2 years, and we're still trying to work our way through that process. We're not there yet. But it's really sitting down with our communities, with you folks, on the development, on the changes that are happening. Toronto's changing. You're seeing it downtown over the last 20 years and how it's going up. The suburbs, if you want to call this suburbs, is changing. People are moving in. We need to be able, and it is happening as much as we can't say no to it. The development and change will be happening. What we need to be doing as in my role as council and as federal council and communities, working with you very closely on that. Hence, we had a couple of weeks ago, and we're just starting to do a lot more of this now. We've got an election. There's nothing happening for about 5 or 6 months, 4 or 5 months. We've got a pandemic. These aren't excuses, by the way. It's just realities. And I've since had a couple of, as much as they were online conversations, we're going to be doing more of those. In fact, this is just one of many where we're going to be reaching out to the communities outside of just the regular planning process. Because as you mentioned, when you put in an application, which is a preliminary application, by the way, that has all changed. That's another longer conversation. You won't be having that anymore. You have a preliminary application comes in. Really what that says is we have an application, planning are kind of go, oh, it's not YouTube we want to have to deal with here. But what we want to do is we want to get it to the community, get your input. That's really the purpose of our preliminary application. It has all changed. Not going to get into the changes right now. But it's really sitting down with communities, sitting down with, when you're looking at this community, yes, you have that one development happening up the street Alfredo, but then you have Scarborough Junction, not too far away from you. That's going to have a big impact to this community. That, by the way, and that's a 20-year plan. Nothing's going to be happening in the next little while. We'll be reaching out to you. And there were consultations, I think, just prior to the pandemic about that the developer did. You've sort of seen, if you haven't seen it, you can go see the plans. We need now to look to that, you folks, and with the developer. It's at appeal right now, which makes it really difficult for myself as a counselor to come out to you to say, listen, here's what we're looking at doing. We can't, when it's an appeal, it's a bit of a challenge. So we're hoping to get out of that appeal process and to sit down with you. And this is over the next year. I mean, this is, as I said, this is a 20-year plan. Nothing's happening over probably the next 3 to 5 years at all. We need to, from the city's perspective, planner's perspective, we need to get this right because it's going to have a big impact on this part of Scarborough. I'm confident in the planners and the people that I'm been working with to work on your behalf to do that. But I have a responsibility to get out to you folks to say, here's what they're looking at doing. This is what our city staff and planners, transportation people are fighting for on your behalf. But we still need to get out to you because there's a lot you don't know. There's a lot I don't know because it's an appeal. I don't know what's going to happen. But we need to be reaching out to you. And that is, I'm hoping over the next, 6 months to be able to reach out to you more.
Yeah, so Sean has a question, and then I just want to do a closing statement, because I know the councilor's got to go. If we can, okay, quickly, Sean, we'll try and get another one as well. Go ahead.
Quick question. I know you are not focusing on the one thing I'm on. When you putting in 300 and 400 units up there at Alfreda, are you waiting on for the school? Because I know how I put food in here. I have to work with the provincial government, I don't have that big crowd, only 2 people can be. My daughter stayed in that one board box 1 year. 1 year, and I have to put those room, I have to work hard myself, and one individual person now. 2 people we start. We work with the Catherine Wayne, we work with Rob Ford, even we have some trustees, and now we have to work with the staff. So we tell, you know how many meetings we had? 3 years I worked to put this room, but nobody, you are, as a council, that's your job to figure out what this community. So people, generation to come. My daughters are going to finish from the university, okay, from this school, they graduate, right? But I'm saying, you are leader, you are the council for this one, you have to putting a 300 or 400 people there more. Where you have any room for the student? Are you going to clean the soil of school? You going to make any room for them? One thing, second, I discussed with this Karen, and he's a very nice person, worked very hard for the community. I appreciate what he got. The problem is, you can't just agree with the developer everything what you want. No. Our family is for 40 years, right in front. And we worked with all time, the city, that's last 40 years, and we, all that last man, to all the way, and no, you have deeds for the time to time, all right? The problem is, we don't want this exit on, that, freedom. I'm not gonna have to guard over the stop, or you can't drive the road. We can't handle that much load on Alfreda. That's my one question for the traffic. Please, question, either the people are trained, either the people are working. They have 2 choices. Why on Alfreda? Why they have to put the road to make it, these children and stuff on the street and crossing the street, there's 240 cars every day.
Thank you, Sean, make a great point. We can continue the discussion.
I think you can stop it. You got to you have to listen.
Okay, so let me, so Sean,
Please do this one and for the school.
so Sean, I'm gonna, that's my closing comment. If there's a time for another question, I will. So I will,
I know my right.
It's not going to make any difference. I'm saying, Sean, let me finish. Got it. Sean, he's got it up.
Sean, I've heard you.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree.
Thank you.
Okay, I've heard you.
Okay, so Councillor, what I'm gonna ask on behalf of the community here, on this particular proposal, if there's an interest in community to do other things, that's great. We've had a bunch of community meetings. This is the best attended so far. There's been lots of time for people to input. My question to you is, knowing that traffic department did a warrant study through the developer, whoever, that one isn't warrant, that a traffic light and a right turn only isn't warranted here. Would you, on behalf of our community, support those 2 things and get the councillors at Scarborough Council and City Council to support that? And I understand all the ins and outs of the hazards of going against city staff sometimes. And the transportation will be some councillors really respect that, some pick and choose, and some will just disregard it. But what we're asking is, and how do we convince you of that? For that stop sign or stop light and the right turn only?
So first of all, let me be very clear. What I will be doing with 2 issues, it's the no left turn out of that. I'll be sitting down with city staff. That, from my perspective, is probably the easier of the 2 to be able to support. Without warrants and all that. So I'll have that conversation. With regard to the stop signs, I'll be very, stoplight, I apologize, the stoplight. I'm gonna be sitting down and with Monique on the warranting. So when I talk about the warrants, I need to see what the actual numbers are. So as much as Misha says, we do have at times go beyond the warrants. Those are warrants that are pretty damn close, excuse me for that word, but we're pretty close, but we're not quite there when you're looking at volumes and speeds. I do not know the answer today on what the warrants or what the studies will say on that stoplight. If they're like way low and staff are advising me that this could actually be a hazard or a challenge to the community, I'm gonna heed their advice. So I am not gonna be put in a position right now to say yes or no to that. I'll be very clear with you. Because when I make a decision, sometimes they're not good decisions that the community wants, but I'm looking at what the best interest of the professionals are saying. So I'll leave it at that right now. I've heard you, I've heard Misha, I've heard your community. I will sit down with staff, and again, I want to having this conversation with you is good, because it now gives me the ability to say, listen, they really want this. You have to convince me that if we do this, and again, they are the professionals that do this all across the city. I will heed their advice, but I'm not at that point to say yes or no. That is what I can offer you.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, your staff being here. My last point was Santa Monica wasn't closed either. But it got done, just saying, because I already spoken to them. So,
I'll take two more quick questions.
Yeah.
I'll go with Victor first, because she hasn't spoken yet, sorry.
It's okay if we talk.
What about the?
That's those two things, but, all right, it's another
The
that.
bump out, by the way, I don't decide on the bump out, city staff will decide on that. That seems like a reasonable request. I'll be pushing that when I'm talking to city
Yeah,
staff.
so you'd be cool with that if I got them
Yeah,
to,
the bump out seems to be a reasonable, request, so I'm, yes, I mean, that is
good, because I already got them to go for it.
Oh, good.
You're already all here, guys. You're on the spot. Both transportation and city planning said they wouldn't do it without transportation blessing, transportation. Actually, the guy you sent out, Lukash, yeah, he's okay with it. And I heard all the provisos. So we're 1/3 of the way there. And you just said, you go for it, baby. So, go ahead. Is that you?
Yeah, and will we get input on the process or the final?
The counselor has just stated in front of us all that he's going to actively get involved in this issue with the city staff and will report back to us.
Yeah, so here's, and thank you for doing this petition, by the way. We haven't seen a physical copy of it. My office needs a physical
Yeah.
copy to be able to, again, because we give it to transportation, we go through a process. Because they need the ability to reach out to you, not that they're gonna be reaching out to you in any way, but we also need the petition here. We haven't seen, so right now I've seen a picture of a petition. I haven't seen,
It's right there at the back table. I'll get it.
get me a copy.
Yeah.
And we give this to staff, by the way.
Yep,
You know,
I'll make a photocopy.
And then we'll be able to reach out to you. I will let everybody know on the development when we think this is happening. I'm not even gonna suggest a number, because so many times we said, I think it's coming in May, it doesn't come till October and November. So once I know a firm date, or I'm pretty close, we will inform you. And then there's another step again to look at the application that comes, another opportunity for input from all of you folks. As there always will be, then a decision will be made by council. I'd say in the next 6 months, I'm hoping earlier, but I'm just gonna leave it at that.
They told me the city planner was thinking May. Obviously, that's not gonna happen now. He was thinking May or June.
Yeah, and I've heard that before, and I've also seen, so, okay.
So we need to be prepared. I don't want to be late. Okay, right, yeah. Yeah, oh, sorry.
I don't need the mic, I don't need.
Okay, this gentleman and this gentleman were done.
I've been driving in this neighborhood for 48 years. I know maybe don't look that old. But anyway, making a left turn when you go down beside the beer store is almost impossible. No one wants to do it.
Right now,
Yeah, what's gonna happen is if I don't know if you can get the traffic light, but the no left turns, you have to do it. Because when these people, a lot of these people are gonna have to go west, right? And they're not gonna want to. So you know what they're gonna do? They're gonna come up to my house and come down to the left.
Let me end this way, and this is maybe one forward. If you guys can talk, get to Misha on, I'd love to come out and act, so I need to see the subdivision, what you see. Invite me out on a particular day. If there's a particular day. Let me come out, I'll bring city staff. So if they're complaining about putting in a stoplight, then great, and they have numbers they've seen. I also want to see real world examples, so invite me out, you guys figure out what it is. Thursday at 4 o'clock with city, and I'll make sure that I come out with city staff and show them the challenge that you guys see.
this gentleman is very polite. And one last question.
It was just a comment. I think there's confusion. So it would be people who are exiting the condo underground garage would not be able to turn left.
Yes.
They could only turn right. I think some people, yeah, it's not the residents on Alfred, it's just, and it's where the search door.
That's why I think this plan, I didn't want, you guys want. Sorry, just, didn't want to say that word, I did.
Accepted, there are for the other options, like turning on.
No, those other options, anyone can propose. You can talk to the city planners and put it on St. Clair. Personally, I'm not willing to fight that fight because I don't think I can win it. I'm a busy guy, right? If I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna go for a winnable option. And I think everyone wins here. The comment I've often made is, at this development, if they just let them turn off the street, the councilor's happy, the city planners are happy, the traffic people are happy. The developer's happy, the people in the building are happy because they have more options. They're all eating the buffet and flushing the toilet up Elfrida. I'll leave you with that thought, Jerry.
I was waiting.
Thank you, everyone.
Don't touch the toilet up Elfrida. And please grab a coffee and something on the way.
Very much.
Appreciate your support.
Thanks again for your coffee.
I hear you. Thank you.
It was a good meeting. I did think it'd be. Well, that's okay.